Can't hear you.
I move that we move the project log to consents because we have a few questions on it. And then I accept the agenda as is.
Do I have a second on that?
Mr. Chair, there's no need to move it into reports. You can discuss it in the consent and move the rest of the consent calendar, so you don't have to renumber things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll,
But when we approve the consent calendar, we will be approving that project log separately, correct? Correct. Okay.
I second.
Anyone object? With no objections, it's approved. The meeting report for February 27th. I'd like to have a motion to approve the meeting report.
I move that we approve the meeting report.
I second.
Any objection? Okay, put the order. We will approve the meeting report.
I didn't do that.
I'll bring it back down to the.
Maybe
I-
television.
This may be, this is too, this,
For TV.
Yes.
oh, is that right, for the TV people?
Yeah.
Gee, it's glaring.
Yeah.
This is really, this is more than what we have at a board meeting, it seems.
No, it's the same.
Is it? Okay, well,
That is pretty bright, yes.
I didn't notice.
He was out of town last week, but I know he's in us.
Yeah, what's the story? Okay, well. Sorry, I didn't recognize the fact that we didn't have a full, we had a quorum, but we didn't have everybody sitting down. So in any case, with regard to the chair's remarks, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome everyone to the third M&C meeting with myself as the chair. This month, we will have a couple of discussion items, and since some of these items could cause us to get into some debate, we need to monitor our time and stick to the topic, please. And if people are not sticking to the topic, I'll intercede. At this time, I would like to introduce the new guidelines that have been developed to address VMS staff and board directors' interactions as they relate to work being done in this committee. And I'm only going to address the guidelines which have been published by VMS as they relate to work in the committee. There are things in here that don't specifically relate to work in the committee, and everybody's got a copy of this, so you can read it at your leisure, but these things, this VMS guideline has been approved by VMS, and anything in here is not subject to debate. So therefore, if you object to what is stated in here, that's nice, keep it to yourself, because at this particular point in time, there's no debate. This thing is an approved document for VMS. The presidents and vice presidents did review this, and we acknowledge the fact that we are in agreement with most of the things in here. I'd say 99.99% of the things that are in there.
What page?
It's a separate document.
It's a separate document. And they address our interrelations with VMS and the board committee with VMS. So let me take some time and go over a couple of salient points in here. So that everybody understands why we did this. Let's start on the first page of this document. Mutual professionalism among VMS staff, board members, and committee advisors is in everyone's best interests. In order to maximize the productivity of VMS staff, board members, and committee advisors should maintain professional decorum, and all parties should adhere to agreed-upon communication protocols. This is without saying, okay, basic stuff. Okay, this is 101. Board members and committee advisors should note that VMS staff report to VMS supervisors, a point that we really need to take note of, and not Laguna Woods Village board members. The below guidelines are meant to help ensure that all board members, committee advisors, and VMS staff understand their roles and responsibilities in maintaining a professional conduct These guidelines should be considered strictly in a positive sense. When everyone knows the rules, everyone understands the expectations, and I think that talks for itself. Note 1, presidents, vice presidents, and committee chairpersons may communicate directly with department heads, VMS directors, or senior managers, e.g. Eileen Paul, Chris Langenaro, Kurt Wyman, who support their committees. The preference is to try to schedule a meeting ahead of time. In order to ensure that business is conducted through village committees and boards, board members and committee advisors shall communicate requests through the committee chairpersons, board presidents, and board first vice presidents. When the issue concerns a committee, the chain of command contact preference is via the committee chairperson first, with a copy to the board president. And the president is second if differences of opinion exist regarding the issue, meaning that if the committee chairperson, you have a particular issue that you want to convey to VMS and you're getting stonewalled by the committee chairperson, you have the option of going to the president so that you don't get stonewalled completely. That was put in there so that you can go around the committee chairperson, not because you want to do that, but because you feel you're being stonewalled. The president at that particular point in time can take some initiative or not at their discretion. Everybody understand that? In order to ensure that the agendas for board and committee meetings are developed and approved by the parties in charge, board meeting agendas cannot be changed without approval of the president and the first vice president. And the committee chairperson is the only individual who can change the agenda for committee meetings. VMS secretaries require this protocol to avoid confusion and to ensure the agenda is correct. Any changes to board or committee meetings agendas by directors must pass through the individuals noted above. Meaning that we're not trying to say that the committee chairperson or the president knows everything. We're saying right now that any messages to the VMS staff needs to be through those people. If you have a problem with what's on the agenda, please let us know, and we will convey that message to VMS staff. But it only be through the committee chairperson, the president, or the first vice president. And that's the protocol we're going to establish from now on. And then to ensure the VMS staff do not receive mixed messages, any business-related queries to VMS staff must go through applicable president, first vice president, and committee chairpersons. This does not mean individual directors cannot make the query, just like I said. The applicable president, first vice president, or committee chairperson must be present during the query discussion, meaning that if you want to have a discussion with VMS, you just need to drag the committee chairperson into that discussion, okay, and we have to come up and schedule a meeting with them. But the first vice president, the president, or the committee chairperson needs to be present during that meeting, as long as the meeting's already been scheduled by some means. And then there's other things in here, okay, and I just want to point out the last item on that list. The other ones are VMS staff conduct, which I'll go over just one item. Under number 7, the board directors and committee advisors must acknowledge that VMS documents are VMS property. VMS operational documents such as standard operating procedures and detailed project schedules are available on a need-to-know basis, but are not to be copied or distributed to anyone who is not a board member. VMS legal and confidential documents are to be treated as VMS documents that can be shared with boards only in a sanitized or generalized format. And board members and committee advisors seeking specialized documents must submit written requests to the CEO for consideration and determination. And that written request form is at the end of this thing that I handed out. It's a request form. And then last but not least, just for the purposes of this particular committee, I'll just go into the page, the last page, item number 4. In certain instances, if VMS staff are contacted by residents for issue resolution, the resident should be referred to the applicable committee chairperson, board president, or first vice president. Those individuals then should inform residents to route all service requests through resident services first. If this approach does not work, residents may contact applicable committee chairpersons, board presidents or first vice presidents or attend a resident advisory committee meeting. If a resident is unwilling to accept the referral, VMS staff should inform their respective supervisor for further action. So VMS is not going to be the middleman on some of these issues with residents, okay? Resident Services gets to see that, excuse me. Resident Services is what you should refer them to. They'll get a ticket number. After they get the ticket number, like I've gotten a number of phone calls recently and emails from various people with complaints or what have you, and the first question we ask is, have you called Resident Services? And if you have, what is the ticket number? And how come have you received any response from them? And if they say no, and it's been 2 weeks or 2 days or whatever it's been, then the committee can then get involved and refer it back through the committee chairperson to VMS to see what's going on with it. It could be a breakdown in communication. It was in one instance where I referred something to Lori. Resident Services didn't code the thing properly, not because it was a mistake. It was the conversation between the resident and the resident services person, okay, went in such a manner that the resident services person did not understand the complexity of the particular problem and the priority of it. And as a result of that, they put it in a priority 10, okay? It should have been as a priority 1. So there's got to be some communication issue whereby the resident services person conveys the message to the resident, what type of priority is this and what have you. But that's going to happen over time. However, the thing right now is we don't want to get involved with everything because I'm not, I don't want to be basically the guy that gets all these calls. I have resident services to do that work. Let them get involved first, and if we haven't gotten that resolved in a reasonable time, then at that particular point in time, we can get involved, but they need to do that first, and there's also a resident advisory committee that they should go to. Any questions on this particular document? As I said, it is not subject to debate. It is as it is. Okay, no questions? We will get on to the remaining documents. Let me just say, I would also like to end my opening remarks, as I did at the last meeting, with a thought for the day. It is one that I held my staff to when I was working as a project manager, those many years ago, and I used to have signs all over our task force area. To me, follow through is everything. If you accept responsibility for the task, then follow through and complete it without being asked. And now let's get on to the rest of the agenda. Okay. Member comments?
Is this okay? You can hear me all right? Maxine McIntosh, 68C. And just about the time I got on the United Board for the first time, around 2007, maybe a little earlier, I can't remember for sure, I was appointed chair of the bench committee for United. And Mary Stone and Dick, her partner, the two of them had chaired the committee, and then they were asked by GRF and United to look at signs, our signage in the village, and make the signs bigger and so forth. So they asked me to take over the bench study, and I took their material and went with that, and ended up helping United set their resolution for benches to be obtained here for the village. And GRF asked me to help them, and then Third ended up borrowing part of my material. So what we have, I'm looking at Serpentine Walk right now because of the hundreds of people that use that walk probably every day. We have 6 benches on Serpentine Walk, and they're a conglomeration of different sizes and patterns and strengths and utility. And the bench resolution that was passed, the first one passed at about that time, asked for the self-cleaning, fast-drying benches, not to select them first by appearance, but by the use they would have for the village, provide for the village people when they're out walking. And so we came up with what's called a thermoplastic powder-coated mesh metal, and it is like a screen, a large screen. So when the sprinklers go on at night, there's no place for the water to bead up like it does on all our benches that have slats. Now, yesterday I was out walking, full sun, beautiful, down at the east end of Serpentine, and there was the new tiny little bench that had been installed there quite recently with wide slats and pools of water. So at 10 o'clock, people still could not sit on that bench. And we have walkers out at daybreak, 6 a.m., a lot of walkers out before 10, but they could not use that bench. And what I'm saying is we need to conform to a bench that really works well. The bench selected at that time started to be installed and was looking good. You see a lot of them, they're green around the community. The newest one, if you'd like to look at it, is close to the south entrance to the overflow parking lot next to the library. Between the library and that little island there, we have a Third Mutual in United. If you look at the second driveway, the south driveway into that little overflow parking lot next to the San Sebastian building, look across the street, and that's a new one that's been installed. And you'll never see a dirt sticky on it like we see on some of the old white benches. Very hard to get them clean. And the leaves and debris either blow off or fall through. So they're very practical and they can be used. 20 minutes after a rain, I've been able to sit on one of those benches because there's just no place for the water to be stored on that surface. And I have some pictures and some notes I made. These are on the 6 different benches. 2 of them are actually laundry room benches that somehow ended up outdoors on Serpentine. They don't hold up. They're too flimsy. They don't have a good finish. They're meant to be used indoors. They work well in the laundry room. And these are the older style. We have a prettier laundry room bench now being installed in our laundry rooms. And this shows the different benches. We still have one recycled plastic, this is the very new one. It's very small. It's only 42 inches across. And all the people walking on Serpentine, that's not helpful. The widest bench we had was a dedicated bench. I'll pass this around so you can look at them. This was dedicated by family and friends of Thelma Kaplan many years ago. I even have the original invoice on the order for that bench. And that was around 2001. Lasted a long time, until about 4 or 5 years ago. It was extra wide. Originally it was going to be 6 feet, have 1 plaque. Then her friends got more money together. I don't know the dimensions of the wider one. I don't have that last invoice copy. But you can tell from the picture it accommodated quite a few people. The thing is, this bench was also installed with 6 flowering trees put in a semicolon. If you're sitting on the bench, semicolon, semicircle here, of 6 different trees that flower at different times of the year. And the bench was installed in the middle. And the people who donated this donated the money for the installation of the trees and the price of the trees. It was a beautiful spot. It was the closest thing we had to a little gathering garden. You know, people don't like gathering gardens near their bedrooms, but it was just one bench, but big enough to seat 4 or 5 people. And I'll pass this around. The best bench on Serpentine Walk is a metal thermoplastic bench that had been donated about 6 years ago by someone else. And it has the open weave. It stays cleaner, except it has a different kind of a band across the top. Curves differently and it's wider. And for some reason, the birds love that band. And that bench is always covered with mess from the birds. Some of us go over there and clean it off periodically, but it doesn't last. Otherwise, that's a very good bench to have. That's right in the middle of Serpentine Walk. There were 2 heritage benches originally. The resolution I helped the boards work with was modified when I left United by Heather Gershon and her landscape committee. They thought they wanted an opportunity to have prettier benches away from the main streets. So they said, we'll continue with this resolution for the benches that are close to the sidewalks. But if we're going to go away from the street, like in a little park area or along Serpentine Walk, then we want to be able to choose different benches. So 2 heritage benches were installed in Serpentine. One already collapsed and caved in and was replaced by a laundry room bench. And when I took pictures and pointed out that that bench was leaning to the side, that was replaced just a few months ago by this little tiny bench. You'll notice on my chart here, I've given the width of the benches. The widest one is that nice thermal plastic coated one that's self-cleaning, fast drying, but the birds love. That's 72 inches wide. That's the widest one we have right now. This little, almost like a child's bench, is 42 inches wide, the newest one. Not very practical for Serpentine Walk. The others are in the 40s and 50s. Let me send this around for you to look at.
Maxine, when you were on that committee, did you present that to the M&C committee and then in turn to the board, that these are the type of benches that are supposed to be bought in the future?
It started in the committee. The committee approved the selections we made and the reasoning behind it and sent it to the board, and it was passed in a resolution.
Okay. So we're saying right now that the resolution stated of the type of benches that we were supposed to be
Yes, and
purchasing
they
for
should
this
be 18
community?
inches high. Some of them were too low. They should be 18 inches high. Let's see. The Kaplan bench, that's a big problem. That's the widest part of Serpentine Walk. That's where there's a nice, like a little park there. And you have a big view. When the trees are freshly trimmed, sometimes you can see all the way across Aragon on down to the Valencia Wall and on down almost to the end of Serpentine in the other direction. It's a lovely area, but that bench was never really replaced. Right now, there's a laundry room bench near there. Not there, but near there.
I'm assuming that the resolution stated that the ones that are already installed are grandfathered in. It's only the new ones would be purchased with this new type
No,
of
we
bench.
didn't cover that at all.
Oh, okay.
We
So
didn't
that's
have-
the reason probably why none of these other benches got replaced with these new
Oh, they
benches.
have been along the streets. But see, because it was changed just a year or two later, they've experimented with different benches along Serpentine. The 2 laundry room benches appeared about 3-4 years ago. And I think staff discovered 2 when you had a lot of new staff coming in. And staff discovered the 2 new ones in the storage area and probably didn't realize they were for a laundry room. And we had benches break, so they put them out on Serpentine Walk. We still have one of the old First Interstate Bank benches there. They're over 25 years old. It's a white one, it says First Interstate Bank, but the residents love it because it's on glides and they can move it around. So when it gets too much sun, they move it a few feet this way or a few feet that way. So
Okay.
it's holding up. They still like that. I have the catalog with me that has the pictures of both the bench with the wide band at the top and the other one that is recommended more often. This one you're looking at that I'm passing around is the Kaplan bench. It's just different views, so you can see how nicely it was placed. This is the laundry room bench that we have 2 of. They moved one when they put in that tiny little, I call it a child's bench. They moved it off to the side, but it's still pretty rickety. So here it is now where the Kaplan bench should be.
Okay.
And then here, this shows the heritage benches. Sometimes they last, sometimes they don't.
All right.
And this is what happened to most of the white plastic. We still have this one. I think this is on Cadiz.
I think
But somebody went out and cleaned it really good. Came out pretty good.
we understand what the bench committee basically wanted us to start using another type of bench. Okay,
What are
so,
you suggesting?
so,
Big pardon?
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we use the same style bench everywhere because of the self-cleaning. It generally lasts long. Self-cleaning feature and the fat, especially the fast drying. People don't mind moving a few leaves, but they don't want to sit in puddles.
understood.
And then more people can use the benches after it's rained or after the sprinklers have been on.
Okay.
It's very useful for
Do you
people.
want us
Thanks.
to replace all of the non-conforming benches?
Big pardon?
You want us to replace all the non-conforming benches?
Get rid of, do it gradually, but start with those 2 laundry room benches, especially the one has been moved to the side over by the carports, way down close to Valencia. when they put in the little, I call it child's bench, the small bench, which is very attractive, but very small. They moved it off to the side, realizing this wasn't going to allow much seating probably, so that it could still be used over here somewhere. But it's the one where the Kaplan bench belongs. That, we used to have 4 or 5 people could sit on that bench. I guess it was 7 feet wide, 7 or 8. It was certainly wider than 6. I don't know what the
Okay.
final measurement was.
We got the message. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll keep passing them around. I'll
Is there anybody else, any other members? Lori, do you know? Any other members?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't, it doesn't appear that there is. I just wanted to comment that when I was in General Services a couple of years ago, one of the things that we did is we went to the bench that Ms. McIntosh is discussing, that powder-coated metal mesh bench. And the idea is to begin to use those throughout the community and to replace particularly the white, ugly bus benches
First
that we
Interstate
have.
bus.
Yeah, so the idea was to replace those on a, as needed basis. As they deteriorate, they pour a pad and they put in the new bench. So that program is in place to do that. And it's in General Services, not in maintenance and construction. So we'll provide the information that Ms. McIntosh brought up to Chris Lauenauer so that he's aware of the issues.
But right now, it's in the queue to be done that way, okay, as the other benches basically either fall apart or they need to get.
Well, we've had a number of them
Right.
fall apart. Ernesto, they are being nicely replaced along the streets.
Right.
Yes, you're putting in green ones regularly when those white ones need to
9:30.
go. Thank you. But along Serpentine, that policy has not been followed. Because that Kaplan bench has been gone for 4 years. We don't have a replacement.
Well, no.
We will make sure that information gets to
Okay,
Chris. Yeah.
thank you very much, appreciate it. No other members? Department head update?
No updates today, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, next is the consent calendar, and we pulled the project log, so I have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
You have a second on that?
I'll second.
Any objection? Okay. With no objection, it passes. Let's go over the project log with some questions that we may have. Do you have some things that you want to express first, or you want us to provide questions to you, whichever you would like to do?
Ms. Margolis had some questions, I believe, so.
I had a couple of questions myself, so I
Okay.
mean, Sue can go first, and I don't know, because normally sometimes you like to point out various different aspects in here first, okay, so that's up to you.
Yeah, no, at this time, we can jump into questions.
Okay?
I think there's a typo that I'd like to get corrected on the number 7. I believe staff is currently working on 90, not 9.
That is correct, thank you.
And I questioned that. I really, on the Shepherd number 14, on the Shepherd's Crook, what are we looking at for this year? How many linear feet are we looking of the 21,000 that we have?
It's 1,500 per year normally.
I believe that, yeah, we're shooting for about 1,500 per year. It's actually much more than the city's requiring us to do. This was more of a city mandated program to replace, they essentially told us that they're not going to allow the barbed wire. So we were replacing them. The quantity actually that the city is requesting is very small, but the mutual through the budgeting process decided to do 1,500.
Okay, and where is the spot located for this year?
Let me see if I have that map available in my binder. We do have a map that we've come up with, and the committee also, oh, here it is. So for 2019, we actually have about 1,479 feet, close to 1,500, yeah.
That's close
And-
enough.
Yeah, and the area for 2019,
See-
we're looking at the area, boy, I can't, that's so small. The area behind El Toro Road, let's see, between Gate 1 and the intersection with Moulton. So it looks like a continuation of the area that we started, that we
It's
completed.
adjacent to that
It's
other
just,
area.
it's adjacent to the
Yeah, that we
area.
completed this year.
So you have a
Yeah.
complete map of how you're gonna go about this for the next?
I sure do, yeah, for all the way up to the completion of the program,
Okay.
yes. And also the committee requested that security weigh in on the priorities.
Certainly.
So these are already, security's priorities are already built into the map.
Okay. I'm done, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of items also. Under item 2, there was a discussion about the fact that there's a new contract that you guys are going, because the old contract was only good for 5 years, and you were going to be looking into coming up with a new contract
Genetics.
for the forward years beyond that. How are we doing with that?
That's-
Well,
That's still a work in progress?
yeah, because the contract expires 2021. So, but I think that you directed us to work with the contractor to see if they can
Correct.
continue the rates
Right.
that they're providing right now.
Or some slight increase or whatever?
Or some slight increase for cost of living.
Right.
And then, so we will do that. If they will not permit us to continue with those rates, we'll either bring it back to you or we'll put it out to bid automatically.
Okay. Okay, hold on, let me finish, and then I'll get to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I started first. I don't want to confuse everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so the thing right now is under item 3, it says there are 6 requests for additional walkway lighting that are currently under review by staff at various locations throughout the mutual, yet according to this, we've expended $12,000 for a review. We must have done some work, did we not? Is that the review? We spent $12,000 on review?
No.
I didn't think so.
We've obviously spent some money in there, most likely for repair of existing walkway lights, which is not reflected in here. But I could come back with what exactly that 12,000 was spent for. But most likely to repair existing lighting rather than address requests from residents
Yeah.
for deficiencies.
I figured that was the case because I didn't think a review would cost $12,000 against a $60,000 budget. It seemed a little bit, so,
Yeah.
it's April now, so.
Right, we'll take
Okay,
a look at that.
The next question I have is to the gutter replacement and repair. It seems that we've gone through almost 2/3 of the budget, and it's only April. Seems like a lot. I'm just asking about that. Any sort of feedback on that?
No, that's a good observation. We had, as you know, massive rains, early this year. So we've had to address quite a few number of repairs, much higher than we anticipated originally when we budgeted this amounts. So we're way ahead of our expenditures for the year on that.
I would suspect that we're going to be I'm suspecting by the time the end of the year comes around, we're probably going to be asking for money out of contingency for additional repairs, possibly. I know it's not going to rain for the rest of the year, but.
No, but it could, depending on what the numbers, this is sort of a contingency amount that is put in there. So if we do get requests for repairs for, not necessarily drainage issues, but gutters that are damaged or dangling out there, or, that they need
Right.
attention, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The common wall replacement under item 15. How, as residents, would we be I take a walk almost every day, and there's a wall on my trek, okay, that looks like it's about ready to come down. And so I was just trying to convey a message to everybody, if you see a wall that's about ready to come down or perceived to be coming down, okay, how would we convey that message? Just resident services or what?
It would be through resident services. This is a combination of what you as residents see out there and what staff sees when they're out doing other work.
Right.
But the idea is that the information be provided through resident services. They will open a ticket, which will be forwarded to the appropriate department, and we'll address it. Change of the way we've been doing business in the past few years, or through the PCM years, is I want to move away from a reactive approach, and I would like, it's been a challenge because of the staffing. We don't have surplus staffing to do this. But one of the things that I will be doing is with our project staffing is to actually conduct some sort of inspection, a drive-by, something that will allow us to do this more proactively. Typically, funding under this item is left on the table at the end of the year. What I like to be able to do is spend all the funding that you give me to do projects and programs. That's my goal. One of the things that we wanted to also do with this funding, and there are several areas that I identified throughout all the programs and the budget, is to divert some of this monies to address some of the drainage issues that we have. A lot of them are very glaring. And instead of waiting for residents or our staffing to give us projects to do out there with the funding that you allocate, cut that off, say, second quarter of the year, and then take the balance of those funds and actually allocate them towards something that's causing the problems that these programs are budgeted to resolve. If we have leaning walls, obviously foundations are soggy or the lows are, there's something causing it. So we need to attack the root causes. A lot of these drainage issues are part of the causes of this structural problems. So we want to take some of this funding without asking you to allocate additional funding this year and begin to look at some of those issues and start resolving some of those issues, like the gutters, like the drainage, increased drainage swales, French drains, whatever methods there are that we can, implement to resolve some of these issues.
And that's the important point here, okay, I wanted to make mention of to these people in the committee and other people who may be listening to this, is that if you see that there's a retaining wall, okay, that looks like it's sort of leaning, I'm not talking about cracks in the blocks or what have you, that's settlement cracks, okay, but if it looks like it's leaning, then say something about it, because if it starts crumbling down, okay, there are other repercussions, okay, as a result of that coming down. So as a result of that, I think that if you see something like that where a wall, like I see a leaning wall every time I walk down a certain path, then I need to make mention of that and say.
Absolutely, and not all of them are caused by drainage issues.
Exactly.
We have a lot of walls that are just overloaded by poor design. And what we do now is we have a structural engineering perform on those walls to make sure that they're redesigned correctly, and we put them in place correctly. So we're actually correcting those issues as well.
And if you actually see something, since everybody's got cameras on their phones these days, take a picture of it and locate where it is, what particular manor or cul-de-sac or wherever it's located, so that they have a little bit more information than just, I found a wall. Well, where the heck is it?
Okay.
Under 18, for gutter cleaning, we seem to have spent $35,974, yet most of the work usually gets done during September timeframe. So what's the understanding right now of with this expenditure of almost $36,000? Just trying to get a feel. I'm sure that there's something going on here.
No, there's an explanation for that. This is a shared cost with general services. General services does provide gutter cleaning throughout the year, and that's predicated on tickets that are open. You know, my gutters are packed with leaves. Could you come over and look at them? So general service will go out there. Actually, I believe they do it with outside services. They do it in-house? Okay, so this will be then staffing to go out there and perform this work as needed through tickets that are put in through resident services.
Okay, and then the last item I have is on item number 20 on the TEC report. Are you going to be giving us some sort of an update on the TEC?
I will. At the upcoming meeting, I will
At the
let you
Energy
know-
Task Force meeting? Okay.
let you know at the task force meeting, thank you. I will let you know where they're at, what their latest work has been, and when we can anticipate getting some deliverables for the committee and the boards to see.
Great, okay. Anybody else? Hold on, Gary had his comments.
I've got a question on item 2, the Pushmatic electric panel replacements. And I guess my question is, what are we gaining? We're budgeting a lot of money and we are expending these dollars putting in Pushmatics, yet SCE is not cooperating with us to give us the energy that we need, which was what I surmised is why we were doing this, so that there would be more electricity provided. So I guess my question is, what are we gaining by expending these dollars if SCE is not working with us?
Well, it's really, that's a very good point. It's really a two-phased approach to upgrade electricity in the mutual. We have panels which are really not panels, they're sub-panels at the manor level. And these are the panels that we're replacing. Those panels, as you know, they're obsolete for all general purposes. You know, they're not being manufactured, they're not being supported. They're 100 amp panels. We're replacing them with panels that could go all the way up to 150 amps. We're not putting in the breakers for 150 amps because you are absolutely correct. This is the first step of the load. The load then goes on to the larger panel that's for that building, and that panel will eventually need to be upgraded as well. So in order to be able to supply that, we need to have adequate conductors and that panel upgraded as well. So this is just the first phase of a long-term upgrade on electricity in the mutual. The next step would be to move forward to the outside panels and begin to look at those. We're not doing that at this time. TEC may have something to say on that, you know, your energy consultant, because they're looking at infrastructure upgrades. So they may have something to say about how to go about that. And then after that, you're absolutely correct, the transformer that's supplying the energy to all of those buildings needs to be looked at to see if he has the capacity to provide the additional increases in loads.
And I guess my follow-up question to that is then, if SCE is not giving us any type of a schedule, or they're not providing that they're going to be performing this service, then should we be using this money in other areas that are really in need of the dollars?
I personally think it's a worthwhile effort and expenditure to upgrade these panels. Like I said, they're no longer supported. I think eventually, SCE, by the way, has made several upgrades in the mutual. We've issued permits for them to upgrade and replace a lot of the old transformers. As part of their infrastructure improvements, they do that not only here, but throughout cities. And I've noted that they've done quite a few of those in United. So they're taking transformers and replacing them, either upgrading them with a higher load transformer, a higher capacity transformer, or putting in transformers that are modern transformers that can accommodate those loads. So when we get the information from your energy consultant, those are very good questions to ask. You know, are these transformers going to be adequate for our upgrades that we're performing to going to 150 amps per panel? So, but my feeling is that you do need to start looking at infrastructure, electrical infrastructure upgrades.
And the reason I'm getting into this is because our water usage, which is going to get increased tremendously price-wise in the next 5 years. And I know in my own kitchen, I have to let my water in the kitchen sink run forever till I get hot water, which is wasting a lot of water. So I have suggested that we maybe look at instant hot water, but then I've been told that our system will not accommodate that until SCE takes care of what needs to be done on the outside.
That is absolutely correct. That's something that it would be very nice to do, to go to this on-demand hot water heaters. However, they require a much higher amperage, which exceeds your current Pushmatic panel capacity. And you may be able to do that, but if the rest of your neighbors do it, most likely you'll be popping fuses. So that's why the mutual really needs to focus on electrical infrastructure improvements and the long term. Not to say that we want to jump on it and start doing, wholesale, but you have a good program in place right now to begin with the mutual, with the Manor panels. The next step would be to move forward with the larger panels for the entire units, and then have your energy consultant look at the overall Edison infrastructure and see how that can accommodate additional loads.
Is there anything that we can do to push SCE at this point? Can we go to Sacramento?
No, there's really not much that I recommend that you do with SCE. We do have a rep that we work through. The only thing that SCE really jumps at is the Public Utility Commission discussions. However, Southern California Edison, and I've had excess of 30 years of experience with them. It's like a black hole. It's a huge bureaucracy, and unfortunately, we rely on them considerably. So to push their buttons is counterproductive.
And
for
I
our community.
understand what you're saying, but we are also paying to
Your
keep
rate-
them going.
Absolutely.
And having worked in that industry in Ohio, I know the PUCO did not appreciate those companies not performing.
Absolutely. So you do have the prerogative of having a representative or a lobbyist at the California Public Utility Commission discuss issues that you're having as a community as a whole with Southern California Edison that may or may not result in the commission actually directing Edison to do anything. It will, I guarantee you, sour up a relationship with Southern California Edison. As I said, they're a very, very large utility. We do rely on them. Our hopes is that we can continue to have some level of coordination with them. But again, you do have the prerogative of going to the CPUC.
Okay.
That's the only thing that they will actually listen to.
All right, thank you.
Hold on, Cash was,
Item
First.
number 17, the water lines, copper pipes. In the second column there, you say, the program started so and so forth on an as-needed basis. I came across one residence that had a water pipe leak in between the walls, and he had to get a plumber to fix it. But his building number is not in this chart, so I was kind of wondering if you have a program that when you detect a leak in a building, in the water pipe, do you take that building in the list to repair?
Actually, we don't. What we do is we track the number of leaks per building, and we have a criteria that we use
Oh, I
to
see.
add those buildings to the program. In many instances, it's cheaper to actually do a conventional repair rather to line an entire building. Epoxy, not epoxy, but the copper line failures are very random, and they're not, you should not equate them to being similar to your waistlines. You know, they're totally different. They're better materials. Most of the occurrences that we have, the problems with copper lines, are related to poor construction, lack of inspections during construction, and that's basically it. So what we do is, our program is reactive and proactive. What we do is, when a building or a manor qualifies under our criteria to go into the program, we don't only epoxy line that particular manor, we epoxy line the entire building. So that we take care of the reactive part of the problem. But we assume that if that manor is having an issue, most likely the other manors in that building may at some point have the same issue because of the construction issues related to it. So we address the entire building at that point. But because somebody had a leak and it was repaired, it doesn't necessarily put them on the program. If we have a reoccurrence within a given period of time, then it does get put into the program.
I see. Okay.
Thank
Walter?
Just as a reference, do you know if the load calculations, referring back to item 2, the load calculations have been completed yet, or if anybody started that for future?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
For the electrical substructure, infrastructure upgrade, has anybody performed the load calculations yet for future loads?
No, actually, there was some preliminary load calculation performed initially when they did when they started the Pushmatic program. But at this point, what the program is to replace the panels. And initially was to do this, the direction from the mutual was to do it in kind. So take a 100 amp panel and put a 100 amp panel back. But staff was able to negotiate with a contractor to actually put a panel that was rated at 150 instead of 100. What we're doing is we're putting a breaker that's 100, but it does have the capacity to take that breaker out and put a 150 amp breaker in there.
Yeah, but in the transformers, it's my experience, they take about a year, and somebody has to do the load calculations ahead of time. Has anybody started those? Just
No, we
curious.
have not done anything because the transformers belong to Southern California Edison. The tricky thing about this is that even though they belong to Southern California Edison, if we were to require a transformer upgrade, they would make us pay for it, because they considered us a private community. But the load calculations for the transformers have not been done at this time. We're kind of working from the load side all the way out to the transformers. So the first step is to replace the manor sub-panels. And then your energy consultant that you have on board right now is working on actually infrastructure upgrades. And I suspect that they will give you some, as part of their deliverables, some idea of what you're looking at in terms of the transformer capacities and other costs related to upgrading the building panels themselves.
Thank you.
Gary?
Ernesto, you referred to a staff shortage, which I'm hearing all over this building. And I'm asking you to please, with our upcoming budget, let's discuss this. If we need to increase our monthlies, then that's what we need to do, but we can't just keep going in this direction.
Absolutely. Staff has already submitted, I prepared a separate memo actually to our CEO addressing our staffing needs in several areas. You know, we've taken very careful, giving very careful thought as to, we don't want to add, our philosophy, my personal philosophy is not to grow staff, but to utilize staff more efficiently and to strike a balance between outside services and in-house staff. That's really my philosophy. With that in mind, we did give a very hard look at those areas that have been limping for the past couple of years because of lack of staffing. Last year, I requested 14 staff members for our department because of serious needs for those people. We got 0. So again, this is part of the process that the CEO will go through, in the budget discussions. But he already has our list, and there are bodies in there that we're asking for.
Thank you.
Yes, Sue?
How many staff persons are you asking for this year, so we can just get a feel for it?
I don't have the list with me. Let me see
That's
if I can-
okay.
If I can pull it up real quick on my emails.
And you put a cost to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
see it at budgeting, thank you.
Yeah, and that's part of the consideration that the CEO will give to the overall GRF staffing, because as you know, it gets included as part of the VMS staffing. It doesn't really affect your budget, but the staffing is allocated through the different corporations. So it's looked at as the overall budgeting process. So you won't get it a specific line item for it. Those bodies will be allocated accordingly to the three different corporations. But I do have, unfortunately, I can't pull it up.
That's fine.
But I do have provided that.
That's fine. So any other questions on the project log? If not, I'd like to accept the motion to approve the project log.
Is my arm not long enough?
Stretch, stretch.
I'm sorry.
Janie, did you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. I'm
Way
calling
back
you.
on the Pushmatics.
Okay.
It looks like you're saying 2,750 Pushmatics. Is that correct? Of the Pushmatics that have been installed, how many have been done by members, contractors through remodeling?
That's a very good question, and because of our requirements through the resale process, that they upgrade anything that's deficient, there is a number of them that have been completed. I don't have that number for you today. We could try to go back on the permits that we've issued and see how many have been completed. But that number, again, the total replacement is 2,750. What you awarded a contract to do was 1,375. So what we'll likely do, and when we go out to bid, is to kind of reassess where we're at, what our needs are. And it most likely will be less than that number, than the 1,375. Based on what we've done through the resale process. But I don't have that number for you.
If it's going to take staff time, that's okay. There was a percentage that you were aware of or whatever. I know it does save us money on our budget.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So
And that's-
I think at budget time, that's a real critical.
Yeah, that may be.
Answer.
Yeah, that may be an easy number to put our fingers on, just by going through the permit process, the manner alterations that we've awarded. So we'll take a look at that, most definitely.
Thank you.
Anybody else have their hand up that I didn't see? Okay. We have a motion to approve the project log.
I move we approve the project log.
Second.
I second.
Any objections? Seeing no objections, it passes. Next on the agenda is the water detection devices.
Mr. Chair, as you may recall, this is essentially the same report that we provided to you at the last meeting that we had in February. You directed us to bring this back for additional discussion. So I'm sure that a committee member had specific concerns about where to go with this. We did discuss this in fairly good detail back in February. I'm sorry, back in August. And then in February, August 18, and back in February 19, you directed us to bring this item back for further discussion. This report provides quite a bit of the information that we that we gave you back in August. And again, it's pretty much the basis of the discussion that we had. So with that, I'll turn it over to the committee.
So at this particular point in time, what in the past, what we've decided to do is not invest in these flood buzz devices. And at the last meeting, I think Gary, somebody
No,
brought it. Manning, with regard to going back to possibly look at these. Now, all I can say about this particular thing is the fact that I have a device, it's not one of these three, in my hot water heater pan. And my neighbor, unfortunately, had a hot water heater installed, and within 6 months, it developed a massive leak, causing tremendous amounts of damage to his manor. And had he had some sort of a device in his pan, he would have been able to see it or hear it with the alarm. I think if any place that we use these things, we should put them in the hot water heater pans, because that can do massive damage if those things leak. In this particular case, it was an issue, okay, with a new hot water heater that developed this leak in the coil, which caused a massive damage. So I don't know where we want to go with this. Anybody have any comments at this particular point in time?
Mr. Sherry, if I may add to
Go
your
ahead.
comments, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that the water heaters that are being installed now, as per current code, require one of two things: either to be vented to the outside, to be plumbed to the outside. So if there is a failure, they will put the water on the outside of the unit. Or if they cannot be vented to the outside, they require a flood stop device that unfortunately costs, the mutual and the residents a little bit more. But what this device does, as per code, it shuts off the water heater, and it's electrically driven device. So your new water heaters will have the ability to shut off the water heater from just, continuing to cause problems. The only issue on the water heater is that, the only caveat to that is that if there's water in the heater and there's a problem that is just draining out through the bottom, then it will continue to drain out the capacity of the water heater. But what this device will do is shut off your water heater, it'll shut off your water, and then you're essentially containing the amount of damage that could occur due to that. This device that we're talking about today, this is a little different device. It does afford the resident a little bit more warning, if you would, if you can hear it, because they're, in my opinion, they're not loud enough for our demographics here. But again, it affords an additional measure of alarm, if you would. You can place it next to your toilet. You can place it under your sink. But that's, just wanted to add that.
So I'd like to make a comment on what Ernesto just said, and he's correct, and to the fact that if it does not vent to the outside or drain to the outside, that pan, then there's an automatic valve in there that automatically shuts. And as long as your inventory in your hot water heater is below where the actual leak is, then you'll stop the leak, but the leak will continue for a while until it gets down to that leakage point. My neighbor is the one that had, and like my water heater, okay, because we all have the same hot water heater, does drain to the outside. However, draining to the outside, if you have, like he had, a massive pressurized water leak, the drainage was not keeping up with the actual leak, and as a result of that, flooded that whole area and flooded his whole area above his kitchen and what have you. So as a result of that, he had some massive damage. He didn't know it happened in the middle of the night. He did not know that it was happening until all of a sudden he got woken up with this disturbance and found water all over his floor, all over wherever, okay? one that I have, which I bought on my own, I didn't ask, makes a hell of a noise, okay? And it's in the pan. And it would have woken me up in the middle of the night. But the thing right now is it's a matter of whether or not, first off, is the hot water heater going to actually spring a leak? That's one thing. In this particular case, it was a faulty heater. I mean, it was only installed for 6 months, I believe. Wow. And it was a very faulty heater, obviously. And then he didn't realize that the valve that was located there, when he saw it, he could have shut the valve right off, but he didn't know it was the valve, so there was no education there for the actual resident as to what to do if you do have that situation. So, I mean, you can have all sorts of alarms coming off, okay, but if you don't have a person that knows to just shut that valve, then it'll stop some of the hot water coming out. But this is an item that is a possibility to utilize or not. We got asked to resurrect it, so I'd like to hear some comments from the committee here as regarding this.
Do we have a log on how many of the, I mean, we're seeing the company come around and do water resolutions in a lot of units here. I mean, I see it out at the truck every day somewhere. Do we have a log as to what the causes of all these are? When we do I mean,
Yeah, they're on the program basis, we do. Because we have leaks from a number of things. They could be from gutters, they could be from water heaters, they could be
Right,
from.
exactly.
You know, so we do record what the cause is of the problem. What we have not done in the past is actually track all of the costs associated with a particular leak, whether it's related to your waste lines or your epoxy lines. We haven't done that in the past. That's something that we're working with IT to be able to capture the repairs on their apparent ticket. So if a leak was caused by your drainage system, your waste line, that all tickets generated to complete all of the repairs, dry walls, asbestos, whatever it is, be tied to that ticket so that we can easily tell you, yeah, there's so many dollars being spent because of waistline leaks.
Okay.
Well, we do track those costs, but for all leaks, unfortunately, we don't have them segregated. That's something that we're working on.
yeah, because if we could look at how much we could save but most of these are covered by insurance. They aren't covered by us, the repairs.
That is correct, yes.
So why don't we do a article for the Breeze on purchasing these and saying that, you know, how to shut it off and so forth, so that we, instead of purchasing them, because we don't have a return on investment here as yet.
And I believe,
Hold on,
if I may,
hold on.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that was part of the discussion, I believe, at the last meeting, to work with the communications, your communications
Right.
group, to let the public know that these are available. They're very cheap.
Yeah, I mean, $6, most people can
Right.
go out and not have their insurance coverage, which has probably got doesn't cover everything. And
Exactly.
so forth.
So that was part of, I think that the committee was going to contact the communications group and develop some sort of article to let the residents know that these are available, that they're inexpensive, where they're available, and, you know, so that they could purchase them.
I'd like to comment on what you just said. If the water, as a result of this water heater, okay, like with my neighbor's case, all the sheetrock, the hot water heater, the complete underlayment underneath that hot water heater, all of that was replaced by us, okay, because it's our responsibility. The only thing he has to replace is the fact that he put a wood floor in, and since it was an alteration, okay, the insurance is going to take care of that, but everything else that belongs to us is replaced by us, okay, that's the
That's correct. If it's a damage caused by our device that we installed for you, or if it's the mutual's liability, obviously we go out there and we make the repairs ourselves.
Yeah, so it was a substantial amount of money that was spent, okay, with some.
Considerably
because they-
more than this amount that would cost us to
Well,
outfit
that's why I said I said this at the beginning when this first thing started, okay, that if I was to replace if I was to put in any of these fuzz buzz devices, okay, I would put one in the hot water heater because a hot water heater leak is a tremendous leak. I mean.
It's a
any of-
20-gallon at minimum.
That's exactly correct. And the other thing right now is the fact that some of the other locations underneath the sink or what have you, we have these anti-burst devices, okay? So the most part, we're probably not going to get that type of leakage, maybe some weeping or what have you. Or in one case, there's the hose that comes off of your kitchen sink. Sometimes that thing bursts. But other than that, for your washer, sprayer. So, but I'd say that the only place that I would do it, if I would do it at all, would be in the hot water heaters, okay? That's where I was going with this. Yes, Cash?
I have a question for you. On this table, on page 1, you're putting these numbers as the cost per unit. Does that include, like you were talking about a thing that shuts off the water? Installation costs, are they included in these prices?
No, this is in reference to this devices here. So the only cost associated with this is the
to
purchase
place.
of the device, and you just put it down,
place.
and when it detects water, it just goes off. That's,
Yeah, but then you were talking about something that will shut the water.
right, we were in reference
Not
to the
yours.
water heaters. Yeah,
Yes.
for the water heaters, there is a device.
Yeah, but
that
you talk
actually-
about the cost of that as $8?
No, those are
$8.
much
That's
more
a different
expensive. This is only in reference to this little devices that you can pick up at Home Depot, I believe. Yeah, it's $6 device.
Thank you.
Cash, I believe the valve you're talking about is part of code. And that's. Code. The valve you're talking about is part of code. When they install it, they have to put the valve in.
Right, the code requires this new device. Whenever you cannot drain to the outside, like Carl mentioned, it requires this device that essentially shuts down the water from continuing to flow.
Yes, Gary?
Ernesto, as in the case where this water heater failed after 6 months, are we, and causing all this damage, are we going back on the manufacturer to take care of?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's warranties on all of this equipment.
Question.
Yes, Cash?
Since you said that if it is installed by us, we pay the cost, right, of the damage? Now, if someone has a leak in the copper pipe inside the wall, we pay the cost of cutting the wall and getting to it
Yes.
and everything?
That is
The
correct.
dry out and
That's,
everything.
Then this particular person I'm talking about, the plumber told him, you cut it and you fix the wall.
that's,
is not
that's incorrect.
That's incorrect, okay.
Yeah, unless it was an alteration where he had actually done something to that copper line.
There was
All
a
the copper
pinhole.
lines belong to the mutual, so,
The pinhole in that pipe wasn't,
no, that would be a mutual.
Mutual cost.
Yeah, mutual issue.
thank you, I'll talk to you about it, thank you.
Well, I move that we go ahead, I move that we go ahead and install it in the water heaters on, what I'd like to see us do is on the preventative maintenance schedule. When we go through on preventative maintenance, we add this to the water heater, so we don't have to go on an all campaign. Is that doable?
So what you're suggesting is that we install one of these devices in the water heater closets in addition to the flood stop device that's required by code.
As part of the replacement and the preventative maintenance. So the people that come through to do preventative maintenance do it, or when you replace a water heater.
We can
I'd like to comment on that for a minute. And there's a motion on the floor, I know. But before we continue, well, first off, do we have a second on that motion?
Okay, it failed.
Well, I'd like to comment on that anyway, okay? With regard to this particular thing, with the particular hot water heaters that have no drainage access to the outside of the building, that valve, and I had it on my hot water heaters in Texas, that valve closes rather quickly, and as long as your pan is deep enough, you should be able to contain as much water as possible, but there may be some overflow. The device, the alarm device, just acknowledges the fact that it's occurring, and it doesn't stop the water, it just tells the person you have a flooded pan. So that's the one thing. The second one is the fact that if you have drainage access to the outside, there is no valve. So the only way that you have any means of, the water will go out as long as the leak is such that the pressurized leak is not filling the pan up faster than the actual drainage going out the side of the building, okay? If that's happening, then you're continuing to drain that hot water heater, and you're not aware of the fact that the hot water heater actually has this leak until you actually open that door to your hot water heater bay area and see that there's a leak. As long as there's no, the leak is such that it's just leaking into the pan and the pan is not overflowing, so it's draining outside. So there's two different items here, okay? If we wanted to use these flooding devices, these alarm devices, okay, we would specifically decide whether or not we wanted to use it on both cases or we'd use it on one. Now, my question right now is the fact that we had a motion on the floor and we didn't get a second. Was that because nobody understood it, or the fact is that they did not want to go with a flooding device?
I guess my concern is what you were stating previously, is that it's not loud enough in many instances to alert the homeowner. So I'm not sure that,
You know, I mean, if you can hear this over TV conversation, there's
and if that's in the next bedroom, I'm not sure that you'd wake up.
if it's in a closet, you definitely will not hear it.
Yeah, that's my,
In many of the manners, it's not only in a closet, it's in a closet next to the closet. If you, like,
That's
you
what
open
mine
up the
is.
drawer, you know, you open up the doors, yeah, and then you have to open up a second door.
yeah.
So it's not that you can't hear it, but it really muffles it seriously.
Let me just comment on that. I spent $12 for mine. I closed both doors. There's the door to the actual hot water thing, and then there's the closet door.
Okay.
And then I turned it on. It was loud. The one that I bought. Now, I'm not here to basically sell the one. I don't have stocks in that company. I really don't care, okay? But it works rather well, but it's not like that. And that one there can only be used once, and then it has to be replaced. The one that I have can be used 7,000 times, okay? Hopefully that never happens. But it is a loud alarm. Now, so if that was your issue with that.
That's my issue.
You know, then we could possibly, I would suggest that we come up with, if we decide to go this route, and we had this motion, it didn't get a second, if we decided to go with this route, okay, we find a device that's loud enough to take care of this problem, because if that's the issue. If it's not the issue, then whatever. Yes, Cash.
I will amend her motion to look into a device that's more,
It did pass, so we.
No,
have to
so I
start-
would
We have to
Second
do a new
motion.
We have to
motion.
move it.
we're gonna make a new motion.
We'd have to make a new motion, yes.
Yeah.
My understanding was these devices are built. These devices are built to be put on the floor. So if there is a slight water, they will activate. Am I correct on that?
Put it anywhere.
Yeah.
They get wet.
So if you, yeah, but if you put it in this pot under the water heater, it's gonna be drowned by water. So
That was
No, it
so
still
water.
goes off,
It
trust me.
still goes off.
it goes off, yeah. There's certain, when the water is flooding, what's the point in being alarmed? The people will see that the water
No,
is leaking.
not when your water heater's in a double closet.
Yeah, if you hear the alarm, you'll know that you've got a leak in your hot water heater, and you go off and shut the valve, okay? that at least reduces the inventory of water that will go into this pan. And if you have a pan that's draining to the outside, then at least you have amount of water coming in is less than the amount of water going out. But when you have more water coming in than going out, then you're gonna overflow the pan.
Yeah, but shutting the valve, the inlet valve, can be done easily by a solenoid. You can put
Yeah,
it,
that's correct. And they said that the ones that do not drain to the outside have solenoid valves on them. That's by code. But the ones, the pans that drain directly to the outside do not have solenoids on them.
That's correct.
Yes.
Who's gonna pay?
We have a speaker,
Go ahead.
Dick Rader.
Hi, Dick Rader, 270D. How many events have we had due to the water heaters overflowing? I mean, isn't that, we have to look at the cost-benefit ratio.
Right.
Right. I don't have exact numbers, but I know that they're very limited.
Yeah.
It's very unusual to get flooding through a water heater, unless the water heater, has failure in the internal heating device or the water heater. A lot of the leaks from the water heater don't happen explosively. They're slow leaks. And those are related to age of the water heater, the tank, corrosion. But you do have a policy, the mutual has a policy to replace water heaters on a 10-year schedule. So that should really be precluded. So the instances are very, very, very small.
Also, if there is, the water's going to the outside, wouldn't eventually the person recognize that there's a pooling of water outside? Wouldn't that alert them?
Yeah, it depends where it drains. I mean, if it drains to a landscaping area, that you probably will not notice.
Right.
If it drains to a concrete area that is flat, you may notice some pooling of water. But the issue is that it will not damage anything internally.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, Karen.
That's why we turned it down the last time, because cost-benefit analysis did not show us that it was worth spending the funds to do it.
Okay, well, I'm going to entertain, go ahead, Cash.
I make a motion that we investigate a better device that is more, louder device rather than this one, and install it in the areas where near water heaters.
talking
Or
about-
other areas that,
You're talking about in the hot water heater pan? Is that what we're talking
Yes,
about?
yes.
Not the ones underneath the kitchen sink, because we already said that we weren't going to use them underneath the kitchen. That was
Yeah.
another option, to use them
yeah,
underneath.
yeah.
Well, you have a motion on the floor.
Seconded.
And all those in favor?
May I,
I'm not sure.
may I?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think we definitely need, looking at the cost benefit, I'm not sure how much does it cost if a water leak, if there's a major water leak and we have to open up we have to clean up the whole issue, the labor expenses and the potential damage to the building. If it's upstairs, it's going to be damage to the unit floor and the walls. I've heard many cases, well, several cases that the water leaked the next door and really get messed up in the next door. So there's cases that the upstairs leak and damage the whole building. That's a lot more expensive than $25,000, okay? So I would highly recommend that we look into this issue. And as far as replacing water heater, my understanding is that we don't replace water heater every 10 years. We replace water heater after 10 years if there's a request. So there are many.
No, that's incorrect. I'm sorry. That's incorrect. We replace them on a 10-year cycle. We had a huge backlog because the code changed, but we've been going after that backlog. That's why you've seen $1 million budget items in your budget because of this backlog. We're hoping to catch up with that backlog, but per mutual resolution, this water heater should be replaced on a 10-year basis.
So are all appliances now replaced on the end life of the, based on our estimates? Because when I bought my unit 5 years ago, I had to go there and they told me that it's already past years. That's why I made a request. And I don't know whether it's recent
Right.
changes.
So the mutual's resolution, it's different for different appliances. If we're talking specifically about water heaters, the resolution is that they be replaced on a 10-year cycle.
Yeah, the hot water heaters will be replaced on a 10-year cycle. There was a reason for it. One, the efficiency. Two, the water usage also because of the fact that you don't heat as much water, so therefore you're turning on the faucet for 10 minutes instead of 2 minutes, okay? And thirdly is the fact if you have water leaking out of that hot water heater, the damage is more than sufficiently to buy a new hot water heater, okay?
What? Okay, so what I would highly recommend is, and I like this new proposal, yes, we need to be concerned with the cost. Maybe the cost is, $10, $12, $15 or something like that to get a better one. But, this is definitely a cost benefit to our community. And this is our property, and we need to take care of the property. We don't say it's too costly, and we're not going to do it. Thank you.
Gary?
We did a cost-benefit analysis the last time, and it did not warrant spending the dollars to do this. And secondly, if you're carrying an HO6 insurance policy, it will take care of the leak that leaks into your fellow resident.
Yeah. So could you, Laurie, could you repeat what the motion is right now as you understand it, please?
No, I'm sorry, I missed the revised motion that
Okay.
Cash made.
Cash?
My motion was to investigate a better or louder device to be put in the water heater pans,
Okay.
especially those that don't have.
What I would suggest is that it sounds like the committee chair has already done that.
I
So
have a picture of it right on my phone right
May-
now that I was going to give to Laurie. okay?
Maybe you can bring it next time and set it
Okay.
off.
If I bring it, then I'll have to take it off the wall. In any case, yeah, that's fine. The thing right now is we'll investigate, so that's what the motion is.
I'll second that.
I already
She already seconded, okay? So under the circumstances right now, any objection to this? Seeing no objection, it passes. Yes?
I'd like to make a motion that we get a article out about these, value of these, buzz, whatever you want to call them, to every person with also the HO6, that there is a piece of data put out to everybody, letting them know what's available to be put under their sink, their toilets, their dishwashers, all units, and that it only costs $6, et cetera.
Okay, so does this really need a motion?
I don't know what we need to
Because
do
right
to
now,
get
we're
that
just going to
done.
ask Elaine to basically put it in the breeze or what have you, is what we're saying, I guess. Or we could even write it up in the breeze ourselves in the United.
And you're gonna be on television on Friday talking
And I'm going
about
to be on
this
television,
meeting.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we need to get this
Yeah.
word out on the HO6,
Six.
and these, you need to get a set of these
And
units to show.
to that, I would like to add that we explain about the shut-off valve.
Right.
So that people realize that they have the ability to shut that water off.
Okay.
This was done when this was first brought up, and we showed the devices and where they could be bought and how much they were, and encouraged people to get them. But that was, what, 2 years ago?
Couple of years.
When we first started talking about this.
I'll be on TV on Friday, so watch me.
You can borrow our devices here.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Janie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think also you should include the device that goes behind the stove that Tim Moy talked about. Could talk about that device at the same time.
I believe that was on a future agenda item. Anyway, so the next item on the agenda, I think we've basically beat this one up to death, I think.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have part of our communications committee here, and she has offered to write an article for the Breeze on this, and you talk about it on Friday on TV.
Okay.
With all the stuff Sue said, you want to touch base after the meeting, Sue?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, next order on business is the service order status report that was requested by one of our committee members. I agreed.
Mr. Chair, so we provided a receive and file report. I've just quickly summarized the report. So the gist of the report is that the data is not, unfortunately, is not linked for us to be able to query it. The amount of information that is generated through all our service tickets, it's overwhelming. It's very large. As you can imagine, just in 2018, 100,000 requests for services were provided. Part of the problem with repeat services, the issue was that, I believe it was Committee Member Margolis requested if we're tracking how many repeat services do we have for a particular item. And one of the challenges that we have in arriving at that is the fact that many of the service requests are not, first of all, the data is not linked together. So we could have several service requests for a job code for toilets at a particular manner. What is not specified in there is whether it's the same toilet, whether it was a different toilet in the manner, whether the first call was related to a flapper, whether the second call was related to the valve on the wall. One of the things that we are doing as a department is making sure that whenever we visit a unit, that we review everything around that particular service request. So if the service request is about a toilet, for God's sake, you need to look at the flapper, you need to look at the valve, you need to look at the guts of the toilet. And if there's a problem with that, just don't fit the flapper. Fix everything that's related to that toilet. And Ms. Margolis' particular unit, there was an issue with a toilet. I personally went to this call, and what I found is that the toilet
You replaced my toilet.
actually replaced her toilet. That's correct. The issue was that the toilet was ancient to begin with. It should have been a flapper. Should have never been replaced. They should have gotten a brand new toilet, because we're replacing our toilets with low flow toilets. So we replace the toilet. But it's a culture change, and that's occurring. So one of the things that we did, though, as part of this request for information, is we went out and we did query, actually, how we're closing our tickets, because that's, to me, it's a clear indication of performance. So we looked at several of our departments. We looked at plumbing, carpentry, electrical, appliance, moisture intrusion, and paint. Unfortunately, I didn't have a copy of this for you because it's very good information. And what we did is we plotted the number of days that it took for us to close those tickets, 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, 91 to 120, and over 120 days. The good news is that all our tickets are being closed, a percentage of the total closure, it's 93.3% within 30 days. So that's very good information. And we're talking a large number of tickets. Just in plumbing, 11,000 tickets on a 12-year period that were closed within 30 days. So that's very good. Let's see, the lowest number was in moisture intrusion, which was actually closed. We had 1,931 tickets open and that were closed within 30 days, and that's 81.9% of the total tickets were closed within 30 days. So that's very good information. Also, we plotted that in relation to the number of tickets that we closed for all our departments from 17 to 18. And what we're finding is that it's an increase on our closure rate and the time that it requires for us to close within that 30 days from one year to the next. So there is improvements on that. I can't forward this information to you if you want. Unfortunately, it was not made part of your report. But it's a good indicator that there is, our performance is improving in those areas. And that's basically it.
Hold on one second, I'll get with you. I'd like to comment on the fact that while it has nothing to do with M&C, it has to do with the resident services. I believe that in certain instances, if we ask the right question, and I don't know what the right question is, but I have an idea of what it might be, and we have a place within the database to ask to notate that particular thing, then it'll come out in the log that if the person that's on resident services says, hey, my toilet's leaking again, or whatever, okay? And the word again, or the fact that, was this something that was called in before this particular thing? And if the person says, yes, this is my second time that I've called in, they can notate that, and that would go into the database as a second call. I understand that people go out there like it's the first time all the time, but if the question was asked, and I don't know, maybe they already asked it, but if they do ask the question, then it could be annotated within the database so that it's then pops up and says that this was a second call on the second issue, okay? Like with the case with Sue, okay, she called 3 or 4 times on the same issue, okay? And these things happen. Hey, things happen, but the thing right now is we need to know that, because that's information that's important for us to make sure that this particular thing, first off, it might be the actual piece of equipment that's having problems, or secondly, this particular person that you're sending out there really doesn't know what he's doing or she's doing, okay? And that is a bit of information that you can use for statistical analysis purposes.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That's something that we're working with resident services. They need to ask the appropriate questions because the toilet is not working. It just doesn't work for us.
Exactly.
We're one part of the process. We need to get that information up front. So if that information is put on the ticket, like my valve is stuck, the toilet keeps running. So when the plumber goes out there, he already knows what the issues are. And then on top of that, and on our end, we want to make sure that when we go out there for a toilet, that we address everything related to that toilet before we leave the unit. So
I think it's information that we need to ask resident services to start asking and annotating it in some way so that it's easily accessible.
Exactly.
Yes.
Do you have a checklist that they take with them for each of the items? So that when they go to the toilet, they know that they should check this, this, and this, and this? Could you put that together for each of these?
Yeah, we actually don't, Sue, but a toilet is composed of, 5 parts.
Yeah, but I mean, if everybody had a checklist, I mean, a pilot has the checklist, they do the same thing every day, but they still have a checklist in front of them. A plumber, he gets rushed, the person comes into the room and says, what are you doing? It would be nice if you put together a checklist for each of the things that they have to do, so that we know that they have at least a situation.
Right. Yeah, the direction that they have from their boss, me, is that they check every single part of that equipment before they leave the unit.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do they know every part?
They should. They should.
Gary?
You want to do Andre first?
Well, we always get
Okay.
committee chairpersons first.
This is kind of something between us and Disaster Prepared Task Force, which I've brought up at those meetings several times. I think the building captains and the cul-de-sac captains need to have been shown by security or whomever where water shut-off valves are for the whole building, so that if we're having a leak and someone's gone or whatever, we can shut that building down till security gets there.
Right. Andre? Oh, I'm sorry.
Your hand is too short.
Your
That's
hand's too
proven.
short, exactly. There you go. Sorry, Janie, I apologize.
I'm going to make two comments. One, following up with Gary, I had a leak. My valve froze up in my shower, and I called and I talked to, it was resolved finally after an hour and 10 minutes, and I have a cut-down bathtub into a shower. And when I made the first call, I made it to Property Services. I could not get through. My second call was to security. My third call was back to security. Security said, well, Property Services is on it. We talked to them. Bottom line, I flooded. And I flooded as I asked security if someone could come out and turn off the main valve to my building. And he said, well, everybody will be out of water. And I said, oh, no, they won't. They're going to have my water. It took an hour and 10 minutes to get somebody to turn that valve off. So I follow up and agree 110%. Everybody should have some designated, if it's the building captain or security, come right out and turn off the main valve.
Yeah, both my department staff as well as Chief Moy's department dispatchers know with 100% certainty that if somebody claims that there is flooding occurring, that it gets treated as an emergency, and that staff is dispatched immediately to shut off that valve to contain the flooding.
I hope so.
So that should have never occurred.
3 calls to security and it never got turned off. until
That's
someone-
unacceptable, and it shouldn't, hopefully it's not the rule but the exception.
My second item that I wanted to talk to you about is that same unit. Now, I had moisture problems from the rain on my doors of my storage unit on my patio. Took quite a while for someone to come out, which is fine, I know everybody's busy. They replaced the doors. They put a new lock on, and my key into my lock was very difficult. So they replaced the lock. If they could carry graphite, that would have resolved the problem. They said they didn't even know what graphite was. So I continued on. I'm waiting for the maintenance people to come out. I think it's going to be a painter, will be the 5th person to come out on my ticket. It seems like there's no coordination whatsoever. I got a call last week that they closed my ticket. I came in and said, I'm sorry, how can the ticket be closed when the painter painted over the drywall when the door was installed? They went ahead and painted over I'm sorry, not the drywall. I'm sorry. Anyway, they painted over the dry rot on the trim. So someone finally came out and replaced that. So I'm waiting for the painter to come and paint over the exposed new wood. That will be the 5th person out to take care of my problem on my storage unit doors. I don't understand. Why do you close a ticket and the work is not done? And why do you have to have 5 to be the 5th person out to take care of my storage doors and the trim and the lock?
Yeah, I have to pull their ticket to see exactly what occurred and have a response to you. I couldn't
Yeah,
respond.
thank you. It's 955C.
Yes?
Issue that was brought up has happened a lot in various buildings. I want to make a motion that somebody studies how to separate this common valve for 4 buildings in wherever is applicable. So everybody can shut off his own valve if there is a leakage. So which will prevent a lot of, no, it doesn't apply to every unit. It applies to certain units that they have common valve. And
I believe that most of the units right now have common valves for many of them. And the thing right now is, okay, you would have to put a valve in for each particular unit. The water that comes into your house, wherever that might be.
yeah, but we know the water, there is drawings. I have
No, I understand that. The thing right now is to open up the wall to then basically put in a valve at that location.
No, I
what have you.
didn't say do it. I just said
Oh,
let's study.
do a
it.
study?
Let's study it.
I'd like to answer that comment. When I sat on M&C, I don't remember if I was an advisor back then or a committee member. We had a problem in a situation where someone went ahead and turned off themselves the valve. The valve was old, it broke, okay? So there was more problems with our member turning that valve and touching that valve than if we'd had somebody from Property Services do that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a related issue on this, on the valves. It hasn't been the practice here to exercise valves. A valve, by exercising a valve, I mean to, on a regular basis, open it and close it, open it and close it a couple times. If you could do that on a regular basis, every, at least once a year, that valve does not freeze on you. That has not been the practice in this community to do that. Why? I have no idea. But that's something that we need to start doing. And that's something that I'm directing my staff to do on a regular basis. Many of the building valves are frozen shut, or they have limited range because they're old valves. So one of the things that we would like to do is to begin to replace these valves. To valve the units individually, it's a very costly endeavor. Yes. So I would not recommend that we do that. So what happens is when these valves are frozen in a particular building that it's experiencing some flooding, is that staff will shut the main valve at the cul-de-sac. So it'll shut not only that building, but will shut other buildings that are being supplied by that. It can be done, but it's really not the right way to do it, and it causes inconveniences to other people that have nothing to do with the problem. So one of the things that we want to start doing is looking at these valves and replacing them. We're looking at $200 to $600 a pop to replace them because they're brass valves. So, but that's something that we definitely need to focus on and start doing. And then, of course, have a program on an annual basis to exercise every single valve that we have to make sure that these valves are continuing to work and don't freeze.
So is this something that you're going to put into effect whereby you'll have your staff go around to start exercising these valves on a whatever annual basis or what have you?
That is correct. We're going to do that. In addition to that, we're probably going to be looking at your budget to see if we can begin some sort of nominal program to
Replace them.
to replace them. As part of the copper epoxy lining, we are replacing these valves. So we're already doing it to very low level. But we need to assess, first of all, we don't even know how many valves are frozen or damaged. But we do want to do that annually. And then we want to maybe add additional funding to your budget to begin a nominal replacement program to start working on it. You have thousands of valves, and I'm not saying that a high percentage is damaged, but there are damaged valves because they haven't been exercised. So we need to start looking at those, and those should really be replaced.
And it's not only the actual replacement of the valves, it could possibly be just as easy as possibly repacking some of those valves that have any packing in them.
It could be. I've seen many valves out there that just, they were left alone for many years. They were never exercised and are just not worth, dealing with at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think one of the reasons you don't allow the homeowners to turn off the valve is so there's no surprises when they're remodeling, and they only give 10 minutes notice that they're gonna shut the thing down. So I feel the procedure of having facilities shut it off is a very good one, rather than each individual knowing how, except in an emergency.
Yes.
Poor Andre, let Andre go now.
Andre?
I need to exercise anyway, but thank you very much. First, I would like to say, the checklist concept is very good, and so we can do some preventive maintenance and then making sure everything's right. Second thing is about the setup. We talk about there are too many, for example, the toilet may have problems, but it's maybe in the master bedroom, it's maybe in the guest bedroom, so we couldn't distinguish that. And if I may recommend to the MNC department that this can be easily modified, accomplished by change the code. If it's a toilet, we have toilet G, means toilet guest room, toilet master bedroom, whatever code you put it in there. That will distinguish between which one. And if, of course, in the guest room, the toilet may be all kinds of problems. But if it comes out 3 or 5 times, we know it's time to replace that toilet. No question asked, okay, in a short period of time. So that's how we can accommodate that. And we don't need to just lump them. If we lump everything into one code, we will have the difficulty to distinguish what exactly the problem is. So that would be my recommendation. That's usually the standard practice. A bigger system may have more fields to distinguish that, but when the system is small, we use different codes to distinguish that. Okay, that's my computer database background talking. Second thing is, I see that there's a service order aging reports. Is that does that have how long this service order that has been outstanding? Is that true? Every service order.
That is correct. That's the report that I just alluded to. Yeah.
May I recommend that we have average aging for the work request? Use that as a service level agreement. Okay, that's usually a standard practice. The average aging report, the number tells us if it's 27.3 days, and next month it's 25.2. We have improvements. We definitely improved our service level. But if it's 27.3, next month we become 35.3. Okay, now we know we have a problem there. Things have changed. Of course, the count also shows some kind of improvement and degradation of the service. If the count is constantly decreasing, we have 110,000 calls in a month, and next month we have 9,000, we have an improvement. If next month we have 7,000, we are doing great. You deserve a pat on the back. But if it's 110,000 and it's increasing to 130,000, 140,000, we know we need to do something extra, okay, to make it happen. So these two pieces of information are critical in the service level agreement. I'm not sure if everybody heard of this concept, a service level agreement. That can be used to measure how effective our service is. And I think the answer how to improve these numbers should come from the department rather than from the board. We just look at the service level agreement and say, number is getting worse, please improve it. Or number is doing better, thank you very much. And that's something that we need to probably implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sue?
When we do the water valve tests, can we put a little tag on that valve saying main water valve so people walking by can see where it is, so that there is visibility of it instead of, because you have it on all the valves around the neighborhood. I see it on a lot of water valves that you have a sign saying water valve shut off or gas shut off. Maybe just a small tag hanging off of it so people could find it.
Ernesto?
So what I understand is that you want us to label the main shutoffs for the residents to understand where it's at?
Right.
Yeah.
So that they can personally,
For emergency only, and then we, you know.
well, do we also label them do not touch only if it's an emergency? So we're talking about a big sign on it? with-
Just a long, narrow tab.
Okay, the thing right now is, I understand what everybody's saying here, okay? I don't know one senior citizen in this community that's gonna go over and touch the valve to begin with, okay? And then secondly, okay, if it is an emergency, then you don't know which valve it is. So we're saying right now that we don't wanna have them touch it, because if they touch it, they'll make a mistake. Well, it's a valve, either it opens or closes, and
Or falls off.
if it falls off, then it was about ready to fall off to begin with, okay? Because there's no way in hell that was falling off, okay? I mean, there's 50 to 100 pounds of pressure behind that valve, okay? If it's gonna fall off, it would have fallen off before the guy touched it. So, I mean, I don't see a problem in putting on a tag that says this is the main shutoff for this building, or whatever we want to say. But, you know, I mean, are we getting into the minutia of this particular thing in this committee, okay? I mean, because we can't micromanage everything, okay? You know, I think we should possibly consider that as a possibility for the future and see where we need to go with it. But at least, if nothing else, we need to at least address the fact that we're going to operate these valves on a periodic basis to see if they actually work. And if we do have valves that are about ready to fall off, okay, as soon as he operates that valve, that plumber is going to see that valve needs to be corrected somehow, okay? I mean, I've never seen valves fall off. They do leak like hell when you operate them because, you know, the fact that the packing in there is just gone, okay? And as soon as you operate it, the damn thing sprays out water. So I think we're getting into the minutia in this particular committee regarding this, okay? And I'd like to say that at this particular point in time, I'd like to say that we're going to go on to the next topic unless somebody else has another comment. Okay. Solar power plant task force update. Ms.
The Solar
Sumar.
Task Force has had 2 meetings. In the first meeting, we brainstormed what we felt we needed to do in order to complete the task. A list of 10 items was generated, and each participant selected the item they felt they could assist on. In the second meeting, we reported on the progress so far. We will be having a third meeting in the next few weeks when the work is completed to compose a report for the board. I'll go through the 10 items. Should we renew the contract with JCI? We have written to cancel the contract, and it was done due to time constraints. It had to be done immediately. Determine if it was built to specifications. Using the current design criteria, it is spec'd correctly. Review to see if we qualify for tax rebates. No rebate possible. Understand the terminology used in the JCI documents. We found better copies of the documents, and we were almost able to read them. Review the governing docs for purchasing policy. The policy is in place, but was not followed on this project. The next one was how to maintain the system going forward. We recommended a power plant manager, and Ernesto has put one in place. The trees were trimmed, still a little work to be done. Ken has photos of cul-de-sac 38. There's one tree slightly shading, and I will ask Ken to do an overview on the other ones so we can have a feel for what we need to do on that. We are scheduling a meeting with Phoenix that's in the works, and we will be doing that to see what they recommend for us to do. And then the other thing is to determine if increasing the slant of the panels would result in an improvement for cleaning and collecting solar power. Right now, it was done at 2%, and the design originally was 5%, and I believe that 5% was a better number. We need to understand what we have to do that. Check if the installation is complete of the monitoring system. That is in the work. The monitoring system is Locus, and it reports out hourly or instantly when there is a problem. Determine if there's a shortfall in electrical generation. We're waiting on the SCE data at this time, and there seems to be, we don't seem to have a problem. What we look at the data that we have now, there doesn't seem to be a problem in our generation. Determine the savings produced. So far, we have incomplete data. We will be working to get that completed. And then provide a return on investment on the system until we have complete data. It is a very complex system that was put together with water heaters, blankets, et cetera, and we may just do a determination on the solar part of it without looking at the other part and try to do a determination on the price there. But the pricing was not broken out, so it's going to be very interesting in what we have to do there, and we will work on that as we go. So that is the current where we are. We will be meeting and trying to get the rest of this work done.
Thank you, Sue. Now, is that cleaned up? Can we put this into the minutes of this meeting?
That's what I told her. I would hand her
Okay.
a sheet of paper.
Great, terrific. And that would be definitely helpful. The other thing right now is, in view of the fact that we talked today about the VMS staff and board director interaction guidelines, where the committee chair needs to be the front man, if you will, regarding any interaction with VMS. Sue, being the chairperson of this specific task force, okay, as far as I'm concerned, she comes under the rule of the committee chair thing, so she can interact with all the VMS people as that committee, task force chair. She is working on my behalf. So, thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that you've done on this. God, it's been a tremendous amount of work. Anybody have any comments or questions regarding this issue? Okay. Next item is the drainage issue at Avenida Sevilla and El Toro. Mr. Ken Deppie, do you have a show and tell thing, or?
Oh, I have pictures of the solar panels if people want to take a quick look that Ken provided me.
Did you give them to Lori?
No, I didn't
Okay.
give them to Lori because I didn't have time to, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can pass my iPad around. See.
Oh, I can see over here, it's like.
I'm up? Okay. During the heavy winter rains, I've recognized probably a significant problem we have in this first photo shows the blue arrow is where there's a massive amount of water coming down Sevilla to El Toro, and then it has to make a left-hand turn to get to the storm drain inlet with the little red square. There's other storm drain inlets, I show them in red, but this flow does not go to the one to the right there on El Toro. It goes downhill to the one in the center. And it gets really deep, and one of the biggest problems is that storm drain is just a flat storm drain in the middle of a gutter, and any debris can easily clog it. It's not one of those that is open and drops in, so it's a very difficult situation there. If you want to show the next photo, this is that storm drain inlet, and there's a crew there cleaning it out because it got the debris got in there and it just flooded that intersection. So people coming in are hitting it, people going out are hitting it, and I should have shown an aerial, but the watershed for this that comes down here is huge. A lot of water comes in here. And actually on the left-hand side is that other storm drain inlet that I'm talking about, and the water doesn't go around that corner, it goes to the center of our entrance, so it's...
Ken, this drain right now belongs to the city. It does not belong to Laguna Woods Village, is that correct?
I don't know that. I know that we are channeling our water within Laguna Woods Village to the city, and I'm just questioning, why don't we drop it into that storm drain?
Well, I'm just saying right now, because if there's anything that needs to be done with that storm drain, it's got to be done by the city itself.
But I think this is a good starting point. What I can do is I can bring this issue to their attention.
Right.
Let them know that there is a concern, there is a traffic safety concern related to this, that their inlet is not adequate. The inlet you're referring to in the middle of the cross cutter it's called a flow-by. Flow-by inlets they're very inefficient and they get clogged easily.
Right.
But I will bring this to their attention to see if there's a possibility that they may want to consider a project to actually enlarge that flow-by inlet. It's very small right now. It does not have the capacity to accommodate the watershed that's going into it. You know.
Could we go to the next photo? I mean, there's that inlet way down there, and the flow is clear. It takes up an entire lane. And maybe it's the city, but if we had an inlet up into our community that got this water underground and went to the city storm drain system, I don't think the city's going to come up and take care of this. This is with the inlet functioning correctly. This is the amount of volume that we're pumping towards that intersection.
Right.
This is Avenida Sevilla.
Yeah.
Looking down towards Gate 1, is that
That's right.
correct?
And
So
there-
that basically what's happening is it's backing up all the way the hell up into
It's not
Avenida
backing up. This is functioning correctly right now
So
with that.
I may add, because hydraulics is one of my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the streets are designed to carry runoff. They're designed as channels, essentially, not only to carry vehicles, but all are designed as channels. The criteria allows for, I believe it's a 100-year event, which is a very intense rain to actually make it all the way up to the parkway. The idea is that it's limited to that point, to the property line, and it doesn't go through people's living rooms. But the street is designed to carry that water. In order to intercept that water, we were talking about actually constructing a storm drain line within Avenida Sevilla to pick up that water further upstream. Right. That can be done, provided that we have the capacity in the storm drain that is in El Toro right now. If that pipe is limited in size and capacity, then adding an inlet and a storm drain upstream will do absolutely nothing. It'll just, it won't do anything because it doesn't have the capacity to fill it up. So the first step would be to talk to the city and see if they're willing to enlarge that inlet, and if it's possible to even do that, because I said if the pipe does not have the capacity underground, then you can put any inlet size you want. The capacity controls the flood, the runoff. So that will be the first step, to talk to them and see and look at their atlas and see what the size of those pipes are. If the possibility exists that we may want to extend the storm drain into the street here, we can certainly do that if there is the capacity. There's a cost associated with that. That will not be on the city, that will be on the mutual to do. So we could, once I talk to the city, I can let you know what the conversation is and what the capacities are and all of that, and what a potential solution is. But just so you know, on an intense rain storm, this street will flood. And it's designed that way, to flood. As long as that water does not cause any damage to residences, and it doesn't sit there for an extended period of time, then that's by design.
And Avenida Sevilla right now, okay, is not one of these roads that, maybe at certain times of the day, but it's not like having it on El Toro Road. It's having some.
Lori, can we go back to the, over, one more? Doesn't quite pick it up. Where Aragon would, the intersection, and it doesn't quite show it down here at the bottom, is where I would suggest that we should consider. Where Aragon comes into Seville, you've got two areas, two other streets that are coming in, so at that first intersection, you're getting multiple amounts of water coming in. So that last run to it's only, 200 feet at most, is where it really gets compounded. And that's where I think if we could get it underground with an inlet there and just run it to the storm drain, you're talking 100 feet of storm drain with an inlet, it wouldn't. Well, that's true. It would accomplish what I'm talking about.
Right now, you're indicating that as we're coming down here, Avenida Sevilla and getting onto El Toro, instead of the water making the left-hand turn, okay, it would be able to be draining into a catch basin or something over on the right-hand side.
I was taking it back up here.
Oh, you're taking it back up here?
Yeah, well, there's a couple alternates. You could put that inlet right at the tip of
Yeah,
that
and that would be on our
arrow,
dime.
and
That would
then
be on our dime right now, as you're saying, and that's possible, and as Ernesto said, the only thing right now is if that storm drain that's located down there can accept that water, or is it just gonna be a matter of just pushing it up? I mean, it's
Right.
just 6 of one, half a dozen the other if it doesn't have enough capacity.
It should, there's 3 inlets, I mean, it's in line, and then
Yeah.
just to the left, I think we've got that main storm drain that the golf cart pass.
Yes, Terry?
I could be wrong also, but in the 4 or 5 years I've lived here, I can't remember of us having the type of water problems that we're having, and this could be an oddity, and maybe it's going to be ongoing, I don't know.
Well,
Global
it's,
warming?
yeah, if I
That
may,
spot always is flooded.
you have different storm frequencies.
Yeah.
A 25-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 100-year storm. And these are related to the probability of a storm of a certain magnitude occurring. A 100-year event, it's calculated to be 1% of probability that will occur in a given year. That's no streets are designed for 100-year storms. You designed large storm drain basins, storm drain structures for a 100-year flood, because we want to make sure you're outside of that 100-year flood. Your streets are typically designed for a 25-year event. And again, the design criteria is that that water is contained within the roadway. And in this particular case, I would venture to say that that was in excess of a 25-year storm, which should not be seen on an ongoing basis. So, but there's, all those variables need to be looked at. The first thing to do is to talk to the city and see what the capacity of the storm is. And if the thing has capacity, then I can bring back to you a cost to extend that with a catch basin within our property, so that we can capture the water prior to
it flooding.
making a mess at the
That's a
intersection.
good idea. Yes, Sue?
I've lived here a long time, and this, no matter what rain comes in, that spot's always flooded. Even little rain, big rain, no matter what, that spot's flooded.
Oh, okay. That's just- So look into that, Ernesto.
We have a speaker.
Ken, do you have any other show and tells?
Oh.
We do have a speaker. Did you want to have him come up?
Oh.
He covered my concern.
Oh, okay. He covered a concern.
I think we're, okay, this is, we're a little out of sequence, but this is cul-de-sac floor 4. It was recently sealed. We've talked about it before. We put this on our culvert replacement list. I mean, this is like 3 days after it rained. It just doesn't flow.
Can I make a quick comment on this? Just to add information so that, you're well informed. One of the problems in the community related to this cul-de-sacs with access to our carports is when they designed the community, they graded the community to minimize dirt movement. I mean, that's basically what they did. They could have imported more dirt or exported more dirt so that when they did the grading, they could have increased their slopes to get a better flow. Obviously, they did not do that. They went for the most cost-effective way of getting this done. So we're kind of stuck with these grades, unfortunately. To regrade this entire area, to get that water to move, to have a better slope, very, very expensive. I don't recommend it. One of the things that also was done is they installed this toy valley gutters, which are useless. I mean, you can take a bucket of water and exceed the capacity of that thing. One of the things that we're doing now, as this gutters damaged, we're replacing them with a 3-foot gutter. The idea is to keep the water out of the asphalt. The worst enemy of asphalt is water sitting on it. It'll just tear it up. What you're noticing here, as Ken pointed out, this was recently sealed. Obviously, they didn't touch the gutter, which is not my preference. We're doing that now. Any gutter that's damaged or, we're replacing it with a larger gutter. But the area was sealed. My recommendation is that you do not defer your sealing program, whether you have a flooding issue or not, because the sealing will protect the life of the pavement, whether you have water sitting on it, whether you have a flooding problem. Until you get to that flooding issue and you have the money to spend on it, I would continue to seal these alleys because it will increase the life. Don't wait until you can fix your flooding problem. So just add additional information so that you know where our philosophy stands on the maintenance of these things. Now, as we do encounter these things, particularly with pavement reconstruction or pavement replacement, we will be yanking these gutters and putting a real gutter in there, a 3-foot gutter, to hopefully that water, contain that water within the concrete, not the asphalt.
We have speaker, Dick Rader.
How many of these areas do we have standing water like that? Because I have a thought as to how to handle it.
I've got the next slide that could maybe answer your question.
Yeah, I think Ken's done a great job in
Is there a lot of
identifying. Yeah, there's many. Yeah, there's many areas in the
Because I was
community.
wondering, do we have any machinery or device that
Keep
sucks
going,
water? Like if you have a situation in a basement, you suck the water out. So what if we did that? Would that be less expensive than doing major gutter repairs?
No, it's very expensive. To have, essentially it will be a Vector truck, the trucks that suck debris out of catch basins.
Yes.
To run that with a crew of people to be drying up your streets, yeah, that will be a very expensive endeavor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lori, can you expand that out? It's real small. It's hard to read, see. So these are, during the rain events, I just kind of ran around showing these areas of concern, of drainage concern, just like you were talking about, Dick. They're kind of concentrated in that lower area, and I've got cul-de-sac 4 circled on there. 3032 is what I want to talk about, but one of my comments are, if we could, our seal coat program, is that on a basis of so many years you put it into the program?
Yeah, the slurry seal cycle, I think currently you have 5 years, but I'm extending it to 7 years. That's the industry standard for a slurry seal. So within a 7 year, you begin to see oxidation of the slurry, and the additional and the deal with the slurry seal is really the best money you can invest to protect your pavement. What it does is seal all the micro cracks and keeps water from entering the bottom of that
Right.
base. But it's a 7 year cycle.
Well, there we go. So I guess my comment is if we look at 64, 65, 22, 21, those cul-de-sacs are in horrible shape. I mean, they're cracking. We're going to, instead of slurry sealing, we're going to be asphalt replacing. Now, Laurie, can you go to the next slide? Or the next picture? Yes, and blow that up. So these are the areas that we're working on right now. And the Seal Coat program, I just went by this morning, 37 and 30, it's a little blurry,
39.
39 are in great shape. You know, they're on like and that was hence my question is like, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're 8s, and the ones I have on the previous slide are 3s.
Right, and there's a good reason for that. You do not want to slurry seal something that is shot. You're wasting your money. What you do want to slurry seal is fairly new pavement, because you want to extend the longevity of that pavement by sealing the micro cracks. Something that's already cracked up, and what I recommend is that we yank it out and we put it brand new.
So based on what Ken had said, okay, have we done inspections whereby we anticipate sealing these particular cul-de-sacs? And when you guys go out there, they find out that it's just a waste of money to do it, and we're not going to do it? We just put it on the list of things that we're going to re-asphalt the next time around, or what's the...
That is correct. We inspect on an annual basis, and we make a determination as to what's required for slurry sealing, for asphalt repair, and asphalt reconstruction, complete reconstruction. So if there is an area that we inspect and it happens to have a lot of alligator cracking or undulations on it, that's an indication that the base has failed. We will not put a slurry seal on that. It's just a waste of your money.
Right.
You know, what we would recommend is that we do a complete grind and overlay, and we end up with a new pavement. Then after we do that, within a 7-year cycle, you should definitely slurry seal that. So you can continue, because if you properly maintain a road that was constructed, you can continue to maintain that road for 100 years and not have to reconstruct it. It's a lot cheaper to slurry seal than to have to reconstruct the pavement.
No,
You know?
I totally
So-
agree with what you're
Right.
saying. I'm just saying right now, okay, is if we see somebody that's basically sealing a roadway that we feel basically should have been replaced, okay, we
It
should
was a
say
mistake.
something about it.
Absolutely, there was a mistake made. You know,
Okay.
we should inspect all our roadways before we slurry seal them, and if they're all cracked up, we shouldn't be slurry sealing, you know. So there's a criteria, a specific criteria in the industry for what you slurry seal and what you don't.
Right.
So something that's already damaged and it has base issues, it should not be slurry sealed, it should be actually be reconstructed.
So basically, if we see anything, we should say something, I guess. Ken, yes?
May I ask, Ken, that you don't limit it to south of El Toro Road? Those of us who live north of El Toro Road have quite a bit of problems too.
I apologize. I generalized last time about the flat paving, and what I would like to say is we have a variety of topography that bring across a variety of drainage issues. I just happened to look at I guess it would be east of Aliso Creek where the paint prep program is, and it's like, boy, what a difference between this area along Aragon with no gutters and downspouts and terrible drainage, and up there it's more hilly and they have gutters and downspouts, and their drainage issues are minimal compared to this central area.
Okay.
Right.
So did you have anything else?
No, just that I feel going forward that where I'm trying to get across is that as we coordinate our drainage programs for next year, I think there's a screenshot of 3032. That one.
I believe that you have, in the last two sessions, okay, pointed out a number of different issues with regard to gutters and downspouts and various different places where we have flooding and what have you, and I think Ernesto's got the message, okay, and he's gonna put that into effect, okay, to try to make that as part of the programs going forward.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for your work, because it's helping us out. You know, we haven't conducted a drone inspection program or a real proactive program to go out there and identify locations, so this is very helpful to us. Our approach is to follow the paving and parkway repair program. So as part of that program, we'll be inspecting those areas, and anything that can be done to improve drainage will be done. The other thing that we're doing, and this is as part of your the budgeting process, is that we're recommending that we add additional funding, I think it's $50,000, through our Prior to Paint program, to do just that, for buildings that don't have the eaves, that don't have the gutters, that don't have the downspouts. That's the time to add them. You know, so we will do, so that'll be added to our carpentry budget to go ahead and add those eaves, and then have a professional company or in-house, if possible, to add those gutters and to resolve those issues, because that's a serious problem that we have. So that'll be through the budget process. Also, in prior sessions, I've identified several contingency programs that you have. As I mentioned earlier today, we want to tap onto those monies to address some of the drainage issues as well. So we're approaching this from many directions, but primarily when we do our paving and our parkway repair improvements, we'll be focusing on those areas specifically to make sure that any drainage improvements that we can add or correct, deficiencies that can be corrected, will be taken care of that at that time, before we lay new asphalt, before we, do anything with the pavement.
Okay, well, thank you. So I guess we're down to items for future agenda, and
Could we add replace water valves to the future agenda?
replace, you mean the isolation valves for the units? Replace water isolated?
Yeah.
The mains.
The main shutoffs.
Main shutoffs.
We can certainly do that.
Yeah. May I also add that we review the average aging statistics and the total count of monthly statistics as a service level agreement in the future.
Is this something that basically is done in M&C, or is it done in resident services?
I would think the information, I don't care where does it come from. Okay,
Well, all I'm
somebody-
saying is, okay, this is the M&C committee, okay, do we want to, where do?
Probably resident services. Discussions should really be initiated with the CO's office.
I think so. I think it needs to belong there, because right now, okay, they only get what they get.
Right.
I mean, it's helpful information for them, but it's got to come from us to basically request that. I mean,
So we'll
he-
do that
Okay.
in the VMS meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There's the
Somebody
drainage
keeps-
improvements to prevent foundation issues, which we've been talking about. The copper pipe supply line leak report, which we've been talking about. Stove fire prevention device, fire avert or ionized smoke detector. I thought that we basically killed that.
That's right. You did.
I have a
It
question.
died.
Yeah.
I thought it died.
It did.
We can certainly remove it from the list.
Yeah.
I think security is still looking at that.
Part of the disaster program.
Yeah, they're still looking at this
It's part of
stuff.
the disaster program, so right now we'll take it off of M&C and then
Oh,
have them
okay.
do something.
That's correct. They're looking at it
Yeah, okay.
And then,
Who's turning on the microphones?
T6.
Appliance appliance repair cost review for staff versus vendor. Oh, okay. What is that? What was that about? Appliance repair cost review for staff versus vendor. What does that mean? I'm a little confused.
Repair costs, but that was brought up when we were considering changing vendors when they reviewed the appliance policy. We can remove that.
Oh, that item can also be removed. We did have some discussion on that. And that's whenever we change vendors, that your policy will have to be revised.
Okay, at this particular, yes, Andre?
Yes, take it on.
Recently, I've run into a couple of situations that contract seems like, based on the residents' report, contractor came to did a job and worked on that, but they didn't complete it, and they were left there for a few months, open, their walls kind of open.
We took care of that. That was an issue with resident services.
Yes.
That unfortunately.
I understand.
It didn't get coded right, and as a result of that, we fixed that. Those panels are put back and they're painted, what have you, it's done
Right.
deal. But I understand that should not have happened, and we're taking measures to make sure that doesn't ever happen again.
Yes, I just want to know what's the QA procedure for contractor work? Is there a procedure that, is
This-
it possible that we review that procedure and know
The
what's going?
contractor, well, you have a point there, okay, but the contractor apologized, they screwed up, okay? And somehow or another, we probably needed to have one of our inspectors go there to make sure that they finished the work.
Two levels of
correctly.
failure, I believe.
And I don't know why that didn't happen. Ernesto, do you have any idea why that didn't happen with those panels? That the contractor did some work and they didn't replace them, and they forgot to come back and replace them?
Lack of inspection, lack of adequate inspection.
QA, yeah.
So right
So-
now, your guys are working on getting that, making sure that doesn't happen again?
We're ramping that up. In fact, one of the positions that we're asking to become full-time staffing is to help with the inspection process. That's something that we've been sorely lacking here for a long, long time. If you don't inspect, you don't get. That's,
Right.
you know.
So they're working on that right now, and I'm going to hold Ernesto to that they're working on it, and we hopefully will not see some of this happening in the future. It may have a mistake or two. Nobody's perfect, okay?
Right.
But at this particular point in time, we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Now, I understand there's a staff shortage that hopefully we'll get that issue resolved with proper
Right.
staffing. Thank you very much.
Okay, committee member comments? Gary?
None.
None.
Several comments.
Sorry?
One, if this interaction guideline is not subject to the debate, why are we reading it and putting in the committee? Everybody can read it.
Okay, so the thing right now is, okay, maybe I was a little too boring whereby I read part of this, but I felt it was important enough that everybody understood what this thing said, and if you had any questions about it, it's a done deal. So, I mean, you had an opportunity to ask a question. So this is where I did, I made the presentation.
But if you ask question, it will start the debate.
No, there's no debate, you're asking a question, what does this mean? And I'm telling you what it means based on the fact of what's written here. There's no debate here, you're not gonna debate the fact of what's stated here, you're gonna ask a question about what does it mean?
Yeah, but the thing is that this thing has been presented to the board numerous times last year. So maybe Mr. Parker wasn't there, he didn't know, he's filled out this and putting it here again. I'm just saying it's a waste of time to read it in the committee, in this meeting.
Okay, well, consider it my time that I wasted and your time that you wasted, so, you can sue me.
I've got
Okay.
something I missed.
The second,
Gary?
it may
Go ahead.
be to Ernesto, when the service personnel come to a house, they ring a bell and then they leave. People have 4 hours of window to wait there. In that period, they may need to go to toilet, etc. They need to stay there for at least 5-10 minutes to see if the guy is in or not, or at least call them to make sure they're there. Because when they come and leave, the resident has to go and ask for another time, and this will take another service order, etc., and it will delay the process. Whereas if he had called, he was there, and then he would have finished the job.
Yeah. Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
so I'd like to comment on that one, and then you can comment on it, okay? I'll tell you for instance, okay? I had a plumber coming to my house a week and a half ago, and for some reason or other, I'm in 831A. He went to 831B. He had a senior moment, whatever you want, no, okay? So he rang the 831B's doorbell, nobody was home. So he contacted the person back wherever, his dispatcher. The dispatcher called me and said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been home for the last 2 hours." "Well, what's the story? How come, didn't you see the guy outside?" And I says, "There's nobody outside." So then they found out he was in the wrong place. I did get the phone call. He rang the doorbell at 831B, but there was nobody there. So under the circumstances, that second, in my case, I did get a phone call to make sure I was home.
So
But that doesn't apply to what I'm saying. The plumber went to the wrong door. I'm not saying.
No, but I mean, he got a phone call.
I got a
because
phone call because they thought that
Nobody was home.
nobody was home.
Yeah, but
So-
they don't normally do the phone
I'm just
call.
saying right now, it happened to me, so why, I'm not
They,
special.
yeah, Mr. Chair, real quick. First of all, it's standard policy for us to do the phone call. That's our standard policy. Also, our staff is instructed to not ring the bell and take off. That's something I used to do as a little kid, ring the bell and run.
But they do.
They're not allowed.
But they
to-
do. I've
They're not
seen
allowed to
twice.
do that.
They do.
So, yeah, but our direction to our staff is that they allow for a senior person to, to get to the door. Obviously, it's something that we ask our staff to do. So if there's an instance where that occurs, I need to hear about it so that I can take measures, but because they're instructed to
But we are
not
not
do that.
supposed to talk to you.
Oh, then you can go to the chair.
Come on.
You can go to the chair.
Don't start
And the
that,
chair
I
can
said,
bring it
okay.
up.
Why not?
I said you can talk to them, only thing is I have to be involved, okay? I didn't say you
Yeah,
can't
but
talk to them.
To find you.
Oh, come on,
Come
Russell,
on.
let's not get into this, okay? I don't want to get involved in this,
Okay.
okay? Give me a break.
That was, there's another one, third, regarding Pushmatic. I heard everything that was said about Pushmatic. These are the questions I raised a year and a half ago, and I still don't have an answer. If there was a procedure to write this down, VMS would have answered. We didn't have to go through it again and again in different meetings. But it's written, I've documented this, and I've shown it to the people, but it keeps on coming back, and we have to repeat it and take time.
Okay, Gary, I'm sorry, you had something.
And
You have anything else?
I'm sorry.
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, the final one is about this gate work. I think, now is gate 3. I think if they divide this into 2 sections, one is the urgent work when the gate is closed, and the second is when the work that can be done when the gate is open. That will minimize the time of closure, because the work that they have to close it may take, with gate closed, it may take 2-3 days. But then we have 6 weeks, and normally that extends. It extended to another 2 weeks, etc., to gate 2. So this causes inconvenience to the residents. But the VMS should, on the contract, should to consider this, and that the inconvenience to the residents is prime issue, not the convenience to the contractor.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. With regard to that issue, it came up at another meeting, and the thing right now is, okay, the contractor made a contract based on the fact that he wanted to get in there and he wanted no obstructions and no interference in his work. That's what made it the cheapest contract. So the fact is that if we have to be inconvenienced for 6 weeks, oh well, too bad. You know, it's only 6 weeks, and then you're getting a gate that's completely, it's complete.
No,
So
what
under
I
the
said-
circumstances right now, that was the contract that they made, and at this particular point in time, he took over that whole area, and that is what the cheapest price
Yeah,
was.
but
It's
what I
GRF.
said was that this should have been considered in the contract.
Why? Because it would have been more costly.
Excuse me, Mr.
It
Chair,
won't.
this is
So,
a
and then,
GRF
sir-
issue.
Yeah, I understand. So the thing right now is, so under the circumstances, this is GRF issue. She's right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Gary, you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Pamela Bajline has some documents upstairs, resale documents that need to be signed and they're emergency. So any of the directors who can stop up there, we're requesting you do so.
Ken? Janie?
I wanted to comment on Ken, what a great presentation you did on your project. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Nothing?
You get, I just want to add one thing to, I'm going to bore you to death even more now, another 2 seconds worth of information from this VMS Board Director Interaction Guidelines. I just want to make everyone aware of the fact that VMS staff has also been informed that they can, if a person that's not the committee chairperson or a person not an authority approaches them, they can say, sorry, you need to talk to your committee chair, president, vice president, or whomever is the person in authority, and they will give you pushback now. So just be aware of that. And with that, I will
Thank you.
adjourn.